Welcome to the Cat Conversation, a podcast helping cat people understand their cats better. I'm KJ, your kitty correspondent. If you enjoyed the show, please make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Cat Conversation, where we are talking about cats and helping people understand them better. I am KJ, your kitty correspondent, and today is a very special episode of the Cat Conversation that I have wanted to do for a while, and also not wanted to do for a while because it's a very difficult topic. This is guidance for grieving pet lovers, and I want to take a moment to recognize everybody here at the Smitten Kitten Cat Cafe who has made the choice today on your weekend to come and have this conversation, because it's kind of hard to get amped up for your weekend. You're like, let's go talk about my pain. Like, that's not easy. So thank you for making the choice to be a part of this. And for you who might be watching or listening, also, I applaud you, because this is a difficult thing that we need to talk about more, and we need to normalize more. And your pain is real. Your grief is real. And whether it has been years or it has been a couple of days, what you're feeling matters, and there are resources to help you. So joining me today are a couple of those amazing resources. I have with me, my first guest is Dr. Natalie Oldenstahl, and she has been with me for some of those difficult moments. We have had some very hard conversations. We've also had some very wonderful conversations about how to handle things gracefully. I would like for you to start off just by telling everybody that's watching and here and listening a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I'm Dr. Natalie Oldenstahl. I'm an integrative veterinarian. I work locally here in Westfield at the Integrative Veterinarian. Ironically, same name twice. I decided I want to be a vet when I was 6. It's a long time. Been doing it for a while. And as an integrative veterinarian, that means sometimes I see cases, I'm the last person that people see. So sometimes because of that, that means that by the time I see that person, I may be the one to tell them that it may be time, because maybe they weren't ready to hear it before, or maybe it wasn't quite time, or maybe it wasn't put in a way that they felt that they could understand. I myself just lost my 18-and-a-half-year-old dog about 3 months ago. She was my last old dog that I had. And we were without dogs first time in 20 years, which was very odd. And this morning I was at an event, and they had a pet memorial wall where you could write on it. And my daughter was with me, who's 8. And I said, do you want to write their names on the wall? And I teared up.
Aww.
And I think, but it's okay, right? And I think that's what we're talking about today, is that it's okay to feel those types of things. So.
Yes, absolutely. And joining us on the panel is another amazing woman who's very passionate about this topic, Jane Rose. You are the founder of the Rose Pet Memorial Center, and you have taken a lot of people through this process that we are talking about today. So could you give us a little background on why this was so important to you that you actually created your business around it?
Well, of course, thank you for having me. And Rose Pet Memorial Center opened in 2013, so we're celebrating our 11th year. My husband and I decided that this was an avenue we wanted to pursue because we didn't like the options available to us as pet parents. We wanted to make sure that the pets in our care are treated very respectfully. They're treated like family members, and we give our clients the time to spend with them before we move forward with their final determination. Sometimes people do burial. Sometimes, most of the time, they do cremation. But I just think it's important that people know they have the right to grieve for their pets. They have the right to talk about their pets. They shouldn't be ashamed when they lose a pet, because losing a pet is sometimes harder than losing a human.
I agree. My gosh, right? Like it's a very different relationship. And so of course, are going to grieve differently. I mean, there are times, but if our pets could talk, the secrets they would tell people,
Exactly.
like,
Exactly.
they know more about us than our closest human. So, having these conversations and having a safe space for people is so important. And I do think we have come a long way. I think there are more people that do understand,
Yes.
that it's not just a pet, and and that there is a process. But I don't know that everybody understands how many resources are available, or how to have those conversations with your vet and your care team about leading up to it. So before we even get into that, like, difficult, what do I do when they're gone? In particular, which is another, oh my gosh, everybody's crying already.
That's okay.
It's okay.
Yes.
Tears are
good.
our body's way of helping us reconcile the loss.
Oh.
So if you can cry, then you're going to heal.
Oh, Jane's gonna make
It's
me
not staying
cry.
inside, right? You don't want to.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. And we put a lot of stigma on emotion, right? I think we're
Mhm.
doing better, right? I think we're doing better. I think the newer generations, right? There's a lot of emotions, but sometimes when it's a hard emotion, it is still hard for us to put it out there or to acknowledge that we even have it. And I think that's
Yes.
a big thing too.
Well, and to acknowledge that, grief is messy, and we want it to be linear. I think we've all heard the stages of grief, and whether it's a pet or a human, like, we would like it to be that way, so we can be like, okay, done with that.
Yeah.
But that's
That's
like,
not the way it goes.
no,
it's more like an ocean
Mhm.
with the tide. It comes in and goes out. You may experience some of those steps that people identified. It was a woman that actually came up with that model like 40 years ago.
Mhm.
But it's not like, okay, I'm in this step, I'm now going to move to this step. It doesn't work like that. You may be farther along and then you go back down here. So you just have to roll with your feelings and
Mhm.
acknowledge them, and not try to put yourself in a box.
Well, and also to know that when they hit you, like, it's okay, and that we're going to talk about some ways
Yeah.
to deal with that and have some resources. And I promised Katie we weren't going to cry the entire time. So well, let me let me help you laugh at me. Many of you know, last year we had two cats that passed a month apart, and the first one was beautiful. And I wrote a whole blog about it, the graceful goodbye. Oh, we had Jaina, and we had a fire going, and all the cats were around us, and we gave her good days, and we said goodbye. And then, and listen, I'm not going to tell the whole story about Rhodey, because nobody's heard it, because it's too much trauma. It's been a year, but he went to the vet for a dental and was in perfectly good hands, and never even got to the dental. He had some sort of weird thing happen, and he just died. And you don't take your pet to a dental thinking that's going to happen, right? So there was a lot of trauma there. And this week I called, because I had an email exchange with Dr. Oldenstahl, and I said, hey, I think Melody, we've talked about having a dental. She's been sick. I think, is she healthy enough? Do you feel good about doing it? And she was like, yep, let's do it. And so I called the integrative veterinary clinic, and I'm like, I want to make an appointment for Melody for her dental. And she said, okay, well, it's going to be a little harder to get her in with Dr. O, but we could schedule you with one of the other doctors a lot sooner. And I started crying.
Because it's all tied in.
Right.
It's all tied into the word dental.
Right.
Yes.
And I mean,
It
like,
doesn't even have to do with
out of nowhere, and I'm like, okay. And I know this girl is like, okay, she's going to need a minute. I don't know why. And I'm like,
Yeah.
my last dental was very traumatic, and it needs to be Dr. O, because it has to be someone I know. No offense to your doctors. I'm sure they're wonderful. And she's like, okay, like, we're just skipping ahead to here's the next appointment. But, I hung up the phone, and I'm like, for crying out loud, it's been a year and I can't say the word dental, but that was,
No, you
lot.
can't.
right?
You can't.
And that's okay.
It is okay.
Yeah.
That's where you are right
called
now.
A grief burst.
Oh.
That's where When you called to make the appointment, it brought back everything you were experiencing when you lost your kitty.
Yeah.
And the same with you at the pet memorial wall.
Yes.
They hit you at the most unexpected times. And it's totally normal, and it's a totally regular part of mourning.
Well, thank you. I called my husband, producer Patches, and I was like, that poor girl that answered that phone.
She's not scheduling any more dental. She's done. She's all done.
Anybody says dental today, she's going to be like, please hold, somebody else take this call. So as we're, talking about the process there of grieving, there's a process that I think is very interesting. And some of us maybe have it with our parents as they get older, but we have it a lot more with our pets because we have the option with our pets to understand where they're at, what their comfort level is, and what we can do about it. And while that's great, it's also a huge responsibility. And we end up asking ourselves, is it the right time? Is it not the right time? And then you're done and you're like, did I wait too long? Did I do it too soon? And so I wanted to kind of, move the conversation into that anticipatory grief that we experience as pet lovers, and something that you are constantly dealing with.
Yes.
So can you talk a little bit to us from a veterinarian standpoint about how we can best serve our pets and have those conversations and communicate properly with you so you know how to help us serve our pets?
So one thing I wanted to say about that was that I think that when you have a pet that has chronic disease and then they continue to go on, like we thought they would go downhill maybe faster than what they were doing, I feel like it builds it up and we almost feel like the train will never end. And it makes it much harder than a pet that maybe is in an acute situation where the option is clear, right? The pet is bleeding, that there's some type of trauma, like there is no option, right? There is no other way to approach this. And I've actually talked about this several times recently because I've had some chronic patients recently and said, because they are still here, then like I said, it's like it's not going to end. And so that kind of grieving period that they have started, it's like they're stuck in it and they're not moving forward or backwards with it because they don't have more information that's coming in to tell them that it's progressing. And so then when it does happen, and I have to say the words, I really think we need to talk about this because I think it's that time. Sometimes it's, well, obviously it's hard to have that conversation, but sometimes it's hard in the veterinary community for veterinarians to take that step, and they want to be very compassionate and empathetic, and they don't tell you directly that it's time. I am unfortunately a little more blunt, and I like to give you guys information that you need because it is such a hard decision that if I can give you some type of information that you can process through this emotional onslaught that you're going through, some type of physical or objective evidence that we can look at. There are different types of quality of life scores. Ohio State has a really good one that quantitates it. And so sometimes that's a really good thing that I will send home with people, and I'll have everyone in the family do it individually and then come together and talk so that no one was influenced, right, when they did their numeric system. So we can kind of get an idea about how everyone is feeling. And sometimes more people than you realize are on that page and they just weren't ready to say it because they didn't want to offend mom or dad or, their friend or whatever it was. But it's a long process, and I don't think it makes the actual part when we get there easier because we've been thinking about it for so long. Jane, did you have anything to say with that type of?
Well, anticipatory grief is a real thing. And sometimes it's even worse than grief after you have lost a pet, because every day you get up and you don't know if your pet is going to still be alive. You don't know when you come home from work if they're still going to be alive. Mm-hmm. You don't want them to suffer, but you don't want to play God. Mm-hmm. So then you wrestle with this with yourself. Mm-hmm. And the Ohio State score test is like the best thing that you can do. Mm-hmm. If you, I also tell people, look at a calendar, take a calendar, and you put a check mark for a good day and an X for a bad day.
Okay.
And when you get to the point that you're having more bad days than good days, then you probably need to assess, am I keeping this pet here for me, or is the pet really, do they have a quality of life?
Has anyone done that score before? Have you? I did. Yeah, I sent it to you. It really is. It's so helpful, and I hope it helped you guys as well to be able to just go, on a scale of this, and there have been times that we've done it that we've been surprised that maybe we're we're ready, and then the score is like, well, maybe they're still doing okay.
And I mean, it's, if they're not suffering, and you would probably agree with this too, and it's, and they're still have a fairly good quality of life, then yes, they can stay. They're happy to stay as long as we need them to, but you do have to assess the reasons why you are determining if you're letting them stay for you or themselves.
So in having the conversation with the vet, there are many times where I think we, and you will, but a lot of it's like you said, a lot of people are like, I want the vet to tell me it's time. That we can't, and I'm just going to speak because I have seen this happen in the veterinary community. We actually, there's another responsibility for us, and that is to not put it on the vet, right? That what the staff goes through, the people that work in veterinary medicine, they are going through a lot. And so if you don't get that answer, it's very important that you communicate. One of the things that I've learned in working with you is the conversation changes very much when you say to your vet, I just want them to be comfortable, because it's your vet's job to tell you everything that's available medical. We can do this. We could do this. We could do this, but it's your pet. And what is the level of testing and procedures that you would like your pet to go through, and what do you want to go through, and what can you afford? And a vet can't answer those questions for you. So if you are in a place where you don't care how many good days they have, and that's what we talk about a lot, right? It's how many good days they have. Right. If you're in a place where you say, I don't care how many good days they have, I just want them to be good. Yes. It opens up a new conversation where things like maybe steroids or medicines that aren't long-term going to be great things are short-term going to help them have good days.
And one thing, there's a couple phrases that I use a lot. One of them I say, especially if I have a pet that has a terminal chronic disease, and and they're on the train, right? That train is moving. We know where the train is going to go. So, and what I tell people is, in that situation, there is no right answer. Meaning, if you make a decision at any point of time, knowing that their quality of life is going to continue to decrease, how do we need them to get all the way that close to the station? Do they need to experience all of that, right? If we already know where they're going, or are we okay to wait until we get more signals as well? And that's why there's no right or wrong answer. There's no right choice. And sometimes that gives people a little bit of power, knowing that they're not doing something wrong by not doing it tomorrow, right? Because now they've talked to me and they're like, well, I didn't do it. I want everyone to feel that they have the information that they need so they can make that, make that understanding what they can do. I had a client many years ago who I had worked with for a long time. Her pet had diabetes and had managed very well for a long time. And the dog had gone downhill very rapidly. It was not something that we could do anything for at that point. She came in with her friend. Her friend drove her. And in the parking lot, I come out to greet her, and she said, Dr. Oldenstahl, why are you making me do this? Well, I didn't make her do it. Right? Let's be very clear. I don't have that kind of power. Right? Ask my husband. I do not have that kind of power. So, but that's she was angry about it, right? Because she had so much. I mean, she had done so much for this dog, and this dog had done so well for so long with a chronic disease. But then we were in a place we couldn't go any farther. And so she wrote me a letter 2 or 3 months later saying, how grateful she was at that time, that it was the right time, and that I was there to help her give that little push and that understanding that it was the right time for that dog. So, but I'll always remember, why are you making me do this? But that's okay. Like you said, it's okay. She was expressing how she felt.
She is, but it's unfortunate that she, a lot of times people blame their vet for a condition their animal has that is beyond the vet's control. They want your animal to live as much as you do, but they have seen many animals with many different illnesses and chronic conditions. And unfortunately, they know where the train station is. And if you are going to prompt them with that question, then you probably need to seriously consider what they respond to you.
And I know we're going to step
good.
to the next topic, but one thing I want to say too is sometimes when people come in and they open that conversation, like you said about, are they comfortable, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Is their quality good? I always say to them, there's a reason why you brought that up today.
Yes.
Because you already know the answer
You
to
do.
this question. We just need to have that conversation. But you guys know, you already know, you would not be in my office or on the phone or even, showing up or thinking about these things unless you knew that that's where we needed to be in some capacity. So, yeah.
And then we get through that and we have the moment and then I always, we've talked about this, like that moment that they're gone is so heavy, and it's like, how am I, like, what just happened? Like, it was so fast and now I have to move forward. Right. And you don't know what to do. And don't look at me, Kayla. You as my sister have been it with me far too many times to look at me with your big tears in your eyes.
Do not look at your sister.
And so there are resources with your vet that you can have the conversation. And I highly recommend, even though it's really hard, planning for it, right?
Yes,
Thinking through,
yes.
right? Thinking through those
Just
things.
like a person.
Yep. So when you
like a person.
open up the conversation of comfort, be brave enough to open up the conversation about what I'm going to do that day, because you don't have to do it in that moment, but you are helping yourself and your pet by planning ahead. And that's, that's part of where you came in, Jane, because there wasn't a lot of resources.
No, I mean, for a long time, vets got pushed into doing funeral care because there was nobody else to do it for the animals. There were not other options for them. And the last thing they went to school to do was to, take care of deceased pets.
Right.
Sure.
So, but to those of us who are pet lovers, we know how much we love our babies and how we want them to be treated with respect. And, there's a lot of fallacies out there. Some people think that they can't take their pet home to show it to their other pets. And that's totally untrue.
Okay.
I mean, if your pet is very damaged, has been in an accident, I would say probably, you need to determine if you can handle that yourself.
Sure.
But,
or if you're in an emotional state where you shouldn't be driving.
Right.
Yeah.
Where you should not be driving.
Cannot drive you and your pet.
Yes.
Right.
Mhm.
Yes.
So even if you're doing euthanasia, you still have the option to take your pet home.
Okay.
So you can spend time with them.
Mhm.
Some people, the Buddhists believe that the body does not leave the soul, or the soul does not leave the body for 3 days. So my Buddhist clients keep the body in home for 3 days. Then they bring me the pet. So, it's a very individual type thing, but it used to be you go to the vet, your pet is euthanized, you say your goodbyes, and you leave sobbing.
Mhm.
I offer all my clients have the option to spend more time with their pets if they want to do that.
Yes.
Some people are good with that. They've already said their goodbyes. They've prepared. Other people really appreciate having that opportunity to have one last goodbye. So, but as far as planning goes, you need to think about, okay, am I going to bury or am I going to do cremation? But, you may have a special urn that you want to get for your pet. You may want to have jewelry made. There's all kinds of options and things you can do to honor your pet after they've passed. And yes, it's not the same as having our beloved pets here with us, but it still gives you some peace to know that, you have a pet with you. Like I have my girl Sugar on today. Sugar was a Great Pyrenees who worked with me at the Memorial Center for 10 years.
Oh my goodness.
And I have a piece of her jewelry on almost every day.
That it's so cool that they can do that with the
Yeah.
jewelry.
I wear Buster. I don't have him on right now, but I wear him every day at work.
You didn't bring Buster today?
I didn't bring Buster. I know. Sorry. I didn't bring Buster. But I wear Buster every day, and I always I tell people, I say Buster's still helping people, because then I show Buster to people. He's in a necklace that's in silver, from a company who does a really nice job with that, and and they didn't. Some people don't know that's a possibility.
No,
right?
they have no idea.
So,
And if you
yes.
don't want glass, you can take some of their cremains and put it in silver, as far as like silver pendants. I mean, some of my pendants start at $30. And you know what? They're stainless steel. Almost everybody can afford $30. And that gives them the option to be able to have their pet close to them. Some people hang it in their car on the rearview mirror. I mean, there's just so many things. And I've tried to find things on the human funeral side and bring them over to the pet side so that my clients have different and unique ways that they can honor their pets after they've passed.
So what are, for you, Jane, what are some of the most common things that when people come to you to prepare, like that we would be answer those questions we would be answering to kind of help us be ready for when the day comes?
Sure. So one of the biggest concerns that almost every pet parent has with cremation is, am I getting my pet back?
Yes, that's always
That
the
is
question.
always the question.
That's always the question.
And in Indiana, unfortunately, pet cremation is not regulated. So we have people in our community who are not doing what they say they are offering. They use language that sometimes you don't understand, because I mean, who goes out and researches pet cremation on a daily basis?
It's not something I want to Google.
Well, especially in an emotional state,
right?
That you need to be thinking about.
Yes, and you don't want to think about that. So, that's something that, as a pet parent myself, is very important, that your pet is only cremated by itself. We put them in a bed with soft blankets. That's how they stay until we do the cremation. We tie a ribbon around their leg with a metal ID tag, so I know where they are at all times.
Wow.
And your pet is being returned to you. You know that you can do nose prints, you can do paw prints, we do clay, we do ink. Some people want to have, we always do fur clippings unless somebody doesn't want them. Usually the comment is, I already have their fur all over my house. I'll just dump my vacuum cleaner bag out.
That's right. Well, and I wanted to touch base on children just for a minute.
Yes,
right?
please.
Because children is a huge, part of this. Ages, different things like that. Should they be present? Should they not be present? Oftentimes when that conversation is started, the child is obviously usually not present, right? So one of the things that I do is try to arm the person with the child with as much information as they can so they can go home and have this conversation. A lot of times the children are more aware than we think. They know Fluffy is not doing as well, right? The dog does not go on the walks, she lays on the floor, right? So a lot of times they understand that. They may or may not have had a human family member, right, that has passed. They've been to a funeral. My children, unfortunately, have been to many funerals, it seems like. And so some of the things that I tell people about is ask your child if they want to be present.
Perfect.
Okay. Ask them, because even if they're very young, and I did this with my own children, because like I said, unfortunately, they've been through human and pet on both sides. And I asked them, and a lot of times people feel that if they say yes, then they're stuck. No, a lot of times children will come. They may be teenagers or younger. They'll come and then they will be present maybe for the first portion of it, the sedation, and then they want to step outside. But they can do that. They're still there. They're still present. They can come back in if they want to or not. If it's at home, right? If someone's doing a home euthanasia with a service that does that, then thinking about where you want that to occur in the home, who you want to be present for that. I don't recommend that your other pets be present for the actual procedure, okay? They can come and smell everything, then take them away while the actual event occurs, and then bring them back in, because they very much understand there's a different feeling. I used to do house call euthanasias. I've seen dogs or cats come in and smell a body and kind of walk off. I've had some that come into the room and they stop and they walk around like a bomb, like a 10-foot radius, and it's incredible, because just 15 minutes prior to that, right? They were there. And I think it's really important. And if you're not in the home, then bring a blanket from home that will be with that pet, that then you take home with you to put on the floor for your other pets to smell. I think that's really important. So once again, ask your kids, see where they want to go. For younger children, a lot of times, because emotions are hard, right? And when you're a kid, like, you have a lot of emotions and you don't really know what to do with them. I ask the parents, I say, have them write a letter to their pet, or draw a picture, Or the other thing that I do, especially if they're going to have cremains or they're going to bury the pet, is I have them get a plain pillowcase and decorate it. And I cannot tell you how many parents have taken photos of that right before it went. Or I had one who came in with a picture and then they said, can we photocopy this and send the photocopy? I want the original, you know? And so anything that we can give the child, you know, a connection to that emotion that they're feeling, because especially if they choose not to be present, then how does Fluffy know that they are there with them? And then they love them, and then you can still send that with them. Right. And I think that's really important. And so my daughter, when we put our first dog to sleep, he was 16 and a half. And that was their first home pet, right? That wasn't like grandma's dog or something that had passed. And she said, because we had talked about how, you know, the soul can come back potentially, you know, in another being or, you know, something like that. And she said, Mommy, she said, how does he know when he's ready to come back? And I said, well, he knows, like they just know. And she said, Mommy, she said, I'm ready now. And I was like, I'm not going to make it. Like hold it together for the children. But I mean, but she was very much understanding of the process, and she must have been only 5. Right. She was 5 and she understood it, but she also knew that she wanted him back. You know, she did. So anyway, like I said, that we can help people and give them things that they can do. I think that's really important.
Well, children do grieve differently than we do. They tend to dose themselves with grief. And by that, I mean, they will come in, they'll ask you a lot of questions, they'll get very upset, and then they'll go off and do something else. And they think about it. And then they come back and ask some more questions. And they repeat this until they have all of their questions answered. But as far as, you know, when should a child be given the opportunity to see the pet leaving, you know, the rule of thumb is if you're old enough to love, you're old enough to decide. So if you love your pet and you're 2 years old, it's okay for you to be there. But parents need to be prepared about how they speak about the loss, because if you tell your child you're putting the cat to sleep, then they're afraid to go to sleep because they may never wake up again.
Yes.
You know?
It's so hard.
Very careful how you speak. And then you get the whole question about, well, where's heaven? Why can't we go to heaven? How is Fluffy in this box? You know, it opens up a lot of different questions that we don't think about as adults.
And you offer support, right?
Yes,
so if
I
people
do.
are struggling with those types of questions, that is something that they could also turn to Rose Pet Memorial Center for help.
I actually have coloring books for children that were designed by a psychologist who specializes in grief. And when I give it to the parents, I tell them, don't sit your kid down and just let them color. This is a book you're going to talk about as you work through this, because it's going to help your child and you reconcile that.
I was going to say, I might need that coloring book.
Yeah, you might need that.
I want to open it up to some questions, and I'm going to lead with one that I just wanted your thoughts on. That is another thing in the grief process that I hear often people struggle with is getting another pet. Like, when is the right time? Am I replacing them? Like, just kind of your thoughts on that internal struggle of what.
Well, I will say this. Each pet is as individual as we are. That is a very personal decision that you and your family make. There's plenty of pets out there who need homes. You are never going to find your pet again because they're also individual. But it's totally a decision. I have people who've come in and they have gotten a new pet before I even have their baby ready for them to go home. That's fine. I'm so glad they open their heart and their home up to another pet. I have other people who say, I will never have another pet. I cannot take the pain. So I found there's no real decision. There's no real answer.
No, it's a very personal, like you said, choice, taking on the care of another pet when maybe you just have spent thousands and thousands of dollars as well, in addition to the grief, right? You have, and you're thinking about, I don't want to start this again, right? I don't want to do that. Like I said, when we put my 18-and-a-half-year-old to sleep in beginning of April, I told the girls we had to wait until school was out. So that would have been like 6-8 weeks. Yeah. So do you want to guess? So 2.5 is what we made it. We made it 2.5 weeks. 2.5 weeks. Because I was told that everyone in the world has a dog except for us. So, but sometimes children, I think they may need, right? Because they're so used to, they've always had a pet their entire life and things like that. So that may change that decision as well. If there's other members in the household other than yourself or just one other person who are making those decisions as adults. So,
or sometimes you have to make that decision because your other pet at home is miserable.
Yes.
And
lonely.
you have to get another cat or another dog or another guinea pig because they are not doing well without their companion.
I'm so glad you brought that up because that is real, right?
It
if you
is
have
very
other
real.
pets, you have to be in tune with them
Yes.
as to if they are grieving. You see medical issues
yes.
Yeah.
from pets who are
absolutely.
grieving,
Yes.
right?
Yes. And they can go down. I mean, you can just see all of a sudden you're like, what is going on? But there's a reason why they are, they have an emotional bond. It was a member of their family or their pack, right? So
Yeah,
yes,
I remember
absolutely.
a moment after, Rhodey had passed, and I was like, he and Jana, we called them the odd couple because they were so always grumping at each other. And then I had a moment where I was like, oh my
What are we
gosh,
gonna do?
of all of the things, he decided to check out because Jana's gone. Like he couldn't live without Jana. like you don't know that impact. And I don't know for sure that that's why we think his heart
happens in
gave out.
humans.
But like,
6 months, right?
You know?
6 months
It's
of a
called broken
spouse
heart
passing.
syndrome.
Yeah.
I think you've probably seen it in animals.
Yes.
so paying attention to your pet, your other pets, and making sure that they are part of that process and recognizing their grief is something that we also need to normalize and
Yes.
talk about that,
Absolutely.
that they have those, that they are going through those same feelings.
And if people think you're nuts because you're talking about this, then those are the people you need to put up on the shelf.
Right?
Yeah.
Because they
Yep.
are not on the same page as you.
Yes.
They are not pet parents. They do not have the same passion that you do or the understanding of how huge a pet loss is.
Yeah.
I mean, in many cases, losing a pet is more difficult than losing a human.
Well, it's the child that never grows up.
Exactly.
They live in your basement forever, right? They are expensive, right? Sometimes
They
I
never
say they
pay
have,
the rent.
No, sometimes I say they have several graduate degrees by this time. Each time I'm like, this is a very well-rounded animal. Very well-rounded. So, yeah.
But you can put them in a cage and not go to jail.
You can. That's also true. So, but I also want to give a shout out to the pets who, when their housemate has passed, who seem to come out of their shell.
Yes.
And then the people who say, well, I really want another cat or another dog or whatever it is,
Mhm.
Please also respect that if that pet has been maybe from the way that emotional status has been kind of smushed, right?
Mhm.
Or was, it was a dominant relationship and they were very submissive to it and they come out of their shell. If you can, give them the opportunity to do that. And maybe they just want to be them.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
It's
Because
true.
that can definitely be the alter dynamic, to the pet that's grieving, that needs a friend, that they've come out of their shell, and maybe we just let them do their life.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I agree.
Yeah.
Do we have any questions or thoughts, or have we covered and helped you guys
Well,
with?
I would like to ask you all who
Okay.
you are here for today. So I'd like to know the name of your pet, what kind of pet they were, and
You're
just
gonna make us all cry.
a short say something about your pet.
You're gonna have to skip me because we'll be here
Okay,
all
okay.
day.
And I can't
Oh my
talk to you.
gosh.
I can't talk to your sister either.
All right. If you want me to pass, just
Yes,
like,
you can pass
You can
if you
pass.
don't want to
You can
share.
pass.
We'll do the joint thing.
yeah,
Oh.
there we go. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a face for radio, like I say. So, anyway, no, these guys know, and that was one thing I wanted to make a comment on, is the fact that we have a peer group with these people we've had for a few years now. Oh, sorry. But the support system has been vital amongst these folks as well, because last year we said goodbye to Ella, our 19-year-old feline with kidney issues. That was very tough. We knew it was time, but you still feel the guilt.
It's still hard.
A month later, our thriving pug at 6 years old got sick and was dead the next day.
Oh.
Yeah. And I mean,
Wow.
there was a lot of wrestling of what could have we done, but she was responding positive to treatments for her stomach issues, but there was probably something underlying that was just never detected.
Yeah.
And then the following month, our cat Mabel, also 19, we had to put him down.
Oh
and
my
so just bang,
goodness.
bang, bang was the hardest summer. We shared their journey of losing multiple pets in one fell swoop.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you guys for being that support system and listening to us and all that stuff through the time as well. So yeah, we're here for them. We've had other dogs and cats in our lives. I grew up with dozens of barn animals, barn cats, things like that. So I've seen all walks of life, from the indoor domesticated scene to the outdoor, balancing nature side of things as well. And no matter what that loss is, be it, sudden accident, things like that, it's never easy, but, I keep moving on, knowing that that's a part of life, but, they'll always have a spot.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Don't
thank
stop
you.
it. Does anybody else want to? I don't want to make anyone take the mic if you don't want to.
I wanted to say how it's kind of odd that I feel like a lot of people in society, when you lose a dog, people are much more apt to offer their condolences in a meaningful way than if you lose your cat. And I understand that a lot of people are more dog. So when we lost our cats, I appreciate that we had the network of people who understood that cats are just as precious as dogs, and it shouldn't be minimized. So I appreciate that we had at that point people who understood and really supported us through that as well.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. And that's part of the reason that, I do this podcast, The Cat Conversation, is because, and I love dogs too, right? So I never want to get in the conversation. We just, as humans, we've had more time with dogs domesticated than we have with cats. And
Thousands.
right, thousands and thousands of years. We're still learning about cats.
Well, they're not fully domesticated.
They're not, right?
They're not.
And they don't want to be.
No, they're
right?
baby tigers living in our house.
So
I think she wants to share about her kitty.
Absolutely.
You want me to cry again?
It's okay if you do.
I'm loud, so I'll just talk like this. I'm Katie. I lost my cat Peyton about 5-6 years ago. I didn't know everybody back then, but it was I went to the vet with him just for a regular checkup, and they found a tumor in his jaw. They said, you need to put him down right away. But he was eating fine. Everything was fine with him. So I said, well, I'm going to let him enjoy the last time I have with him. For about the next month, he was fine, eating fine, going to the bathroom okay, playing fine. Then all of a sudden, everything went wrong. And my vet wasn't available for a while. So my dad took me to Noah's, and they were amazing with him. And so it was very quick and very sudden. But then a month later, I got the chance to foster my current cats, Calypso and Fluffy. And I knew with my heart it was Peyton telling me it was time, because it was like what you said, it was the first time in a long time I was truly by myself. I've had cats all my life. And it was Peyton telling me it was time. So I'm here for Peyton. And then recently I adopted Cooper, which was her pet of the week this week. So thank you, KJ. He's the diva this week in my house. So, but I'm here for Peyton, and he's buried in my dad's backyard, and I go to my dad's house every week. So I always say hi to him when I go over there, and I tell him I love him and I miss him. And it's hard because I think about him all the time. But I want to thank you all for always being there for me and giving me the best advice I can with the cats I have now. So even though I'm grieving for Peyton all the time, and it's been years, I know he's always there.
And so are we.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Would you? Yes. Are you guys? Do you want? Okay. And then I'm coming to you.
Yeah, just real quick.
Yeah.
It's so you talked about one of the situations that I am in. So I have a miniature schnauzer who has had everything wrong with him forever. And just when you think it's over, he bounces back. And so I appreciate that y'all have talked about that. He just had his 4th cancer surgery on Friday. So he just keeps on making the rounds. Yep. And then the other thing that I think is a little different that I struggle with on the regular is community cats. Yeah. So we have a lot of colonies that we work with, that we feed, that we take care of. And so grief is almost constant.
Yes.
And this has, helped in, really being able to think differently about that, because almost every week there is a cat who we've had to take care of in some way because he's passed on. And so that's my biggest issue with grief is
Yes.
community cats, because
Well,
Yes.
it's the ocean.
on and
It is.
on.
You're treading in your ocean.
yes,
Yes.
constantly.
You have
You-
never left the ocean.
You are like right at the surf where it's hitting you every time.
yeah,
because
it's
just
waves.
about the time you're able to make some, progress, you are
Yep.
hit with it again.
Well, and I think in that case, because that won't change, right? Like this is not a situation that will change. I kind of almost liken it to anxiety, because anxiety is many of our friends here, whether we'd like it to be or not. But if anxiety is the ocean, if we struggle against anxiety because we don't want it, because it shouldn't be there, or we can't manage it, or it just keeps happening, or it does things that we don't want it to do, kind of like the grief comes, we don't have control. If we can just float in the ocean and acknowledge the ocean rather than try to fight the ocean, because it's not going to go away. That has been helpful for me, at least.
My name's Nathan, and I began volunteering at one of the local humane societies here in town, and this was like 2011. And my first day there, I was working with the cats, and there was a black cat. Her name is Sabrina, and she looks very much like this one that's been visiting with me. And she wasn't antisocial, but she just had her box on her shelf, and she didn't come down for anybody. And I don't know what it was. My first day there, she just latched onto me and was like, "This is my person." So, so I ended up adopting her a couple months later, and so I had her until about 2 years ago. And then it was just like one day her health just kind of went downhill, and she was having trouble breathing. And they did a test on her, and she had this fluid that developed in between the space between her rib cage and her lungs, and she was having trouble breathing. And there was the option to do radiation, but with her advanced age, they said that's probably not a good idea. So I finally made the decision. It was time. I knew. I talked to the vet, and then like that one day I woke up one morning and she was laying on the floor, and it's like she was ready to say goodbye. Like we both kind of knew, and so we got to touch noses, and we always wanted to touch foreheads, and I sang her a couple songs I used to always sing to her when she was alive, and then it was like she was gone. And so I ended up having her buried there, and there was like a memorial garden at the Humane Society, and it seemed kind of fitting because that's where we first met. And and I ended up stepping down a couple months later. It was just really difficult to be there. And my last day, before I got off my shift, this black cat climbed in my lap, and there was a mom and her little, he's probably 8 or 9. This little boy came in, and he was asking all kinds of questions, and he was writing down notes, and he started asking me about this black cat, and we just writing all kinds. It was really incredible. And he ended up adopting this cat. So if, like, in a way, it kind of came full circle. And so I do have this is like a little, I don't know, a little grave marker, a little marker they had to keep with me. And
That's beautiful.
yeah,
Aw.
yeah,
Beautiful.
that was a little song I used to sing to her all the time. And so I have her picture in a little lantern. I have one for Whiskers, and then I have 2 of the toys that came when I adopted her. Because she had 2 toy boxes, of toys, but like a cat, she just wanted the milk rings in the box. She didn't really care about the toys, but so some days are better than others. And people have asked, "Oh, do you want to get another cat?" And I thought, no, I'm not there. And where I live now, I actually babysit for other people's pets, so it's kind of I get to spend time with pets, but not have the emotional stuff that goes with that. So
Yeah. Well, and I think, sitting, here together today, this is one of our resources, right? Like if you aren't ready, you don't know if you want to welcome another cat in your life, but you know how healing they are. Being able to come spend time here, volunteering, and Shelley, she's not going to be someone who is going to, toot her own horn, but she is an amazing hero for community cats, and what we do with indie neighborhood cats. Those lives matter.
Yes, they
right?
do.
They matter. And and the people that are feeding them, sometimes the people that reach out to us, that's their only connection to any kind of relationship. They're,
Yes.
you know, and
Yes.
so yes, we grieve them all, you know, and what you do is important. So I hope that everybody took away from this today that you're not alone, and that it doesn't matter if it's been days or years. Like,
It doesn't.
It
I mean,
doesn't.
right?
no.
No.
It's something we learn to live with. It's going to change you forever. And you just need to accept that, and your feelings that you're experiencing are totally normal.
And it's one of your chapters,
It
right?
is. It's
In
one
your
of your
book, it's not removed ever. So
This is a book that I recommend.
Not
my
Speaking of books,
Yes,
here we
not
go.
my
I was-
book.
you know what? I was going to ask you.
That's
like,
okay.
so let me tell you about
Do
my
I need to hold the book?
Yes.
Proof it's not her book.
Hold
It's
the book.
all her book. It's not her book.
When your pet dies, a guide to mourning, remembering, and healing, because you do have to have the intent to heal. You can heal and still honor your baby.
We're very grateful to the Smitten Kitten Cat Cafe that they have given us a
Absolutely.
little bit of extra time, and that they've given us this wonderful space to do this. And I do, you know, would love to hear back from you. I think, you know, all of you know how to find me. If this is something that we need to do more often, and if there is somebody that you would want to bring back and experience this, because like you said, there's a support here that you guys know from being in the cat club. And for those of you listening, KJ's Cat Club is it's a Facebook group. It's free to join, and we post lots of cute pictures, but we also talk about things like, what do I do? My cat's got a different behavior. Is that something I should be worried about? You know, and everybody's very supportive, and we talk about grief. We have Coffee and Cats live, and we have cried many times,
Yes.
not trying to, right? But it's like all of a sudden we're drinking coffee and we're having fun, and we're like,
That's
So-
wonderful.
That's
I'm
good.
glad.
It's
I'm glad
good.
you all were crying.
yes.
That
yes.
means you are healing.
So, Jane, people can find your website. Is it rosepetmemorialcenter.com?
That's it.
All right. So,
It's rose like the flower.
all right. And any last thoughts from you, Dr.
No,
Oldenstahl?
everybody, when you guys shared about your pets, there was one that maybe kind of stood out more than the others. And I call it the heart pet. Like, we may have pets that we've loved in our life and may have had more than one. And sometimes there's that one that kind of touches us a little. And I just kind of call that the heart pet. And for me, that's why I have Buster, and I don't have my other dog as a necklace, because I didn't feel that that's what she would have wanted.
Mhm.
So I have Buster, and I don't feel like I'm just not acknowledging that she hasn't passed. It's just, that was not it was different, you know. And I think knowing that those relationships are different, and it's okay to have that heart pet or more than one heart pet too. So
Yes. Yeah. So I'm glad that you pointed that out, because it goes back to where we started, is that your feelings are valid, and however you are grieving is
It's
okay.
it is okay.
We have done that. We've had, when we first started losing cats, we didn't take their remains back, and it didn't bother us. And then there was Leia, and I remember when they were like, do you because you know, we had done the like usual, do you want to do
Yeah.
what you usually do? And I was like, give her back to me.
Yeah, you have to
Heart
have
cap.
them.
Right. And I was like,
Heart-
oh my
heart cap.
gosh. So like it's okay that it's different, and
Yes.
they don't care.
No.
Right. That's
they don't.
really important. They
No.
do not care.
The thing about grief, there are no rules.
Yes.
Everybody's grief journey is their own. You owe no one an explanation for how you feel.
So thank you all for joining us today. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you to the Smitten Kitten Cat Cafe. You can follow along with all the things that we are doing in terms of getting together, our cat club, all of that. Go to catconversation.com. And until the next conversation, I am sending you positive vibes. Thanks for joining me for the Cat Conversation, powered by Storms and Melodies Calming Remedies. You can shop stormsandmelodies.com, where you can also get my book, Raised by Cats, Behind the Mic and the Meows. Subscribe so you can keep up with the cat conversation, and follow my YouTube channel for the positive vibes of pop culture, people to know, and pets. Go to youtube.com/KJ Today.